if you see a parishioner who may not admit to you that they're depressed or um, have their have signs of depression. Signs of depression are basically lack of interest in things, like lack of interest in life, like lack of interest in going to church. And when I was undiagnosed, for me, I had difficulty, and I'll admit this publicly, difficulty getting out of bed. And I honestly thought it was part of cerebral palsy. I didn't realize until I actually took the psych test that was given to me to see if I had anxiety and depression, that I didn't realize that getting out of bed was not getting out of bed was a part of depression. So basically, if you have those, I don't want to call them ERs, if you have those people that you see in your congregation that, oh, or ho hum, I don't want to be here, I'm dragged to church by my family member, you kind of gotta get to the bottom of it, and people won't tell you, yes, I have depression. People will come out and they will beat around the bush. They will beat around the bush. And what happens is that people will get so concerned about people, then they will wonder, well, where's Susan Q? She's always at church, and then they don't show up for a week. And you as the pastoral care team may have to call that parishioner and say, look, I'm here to support you. I will keep it private unless you are planning to hurt yourself or hurt another. I know you guys are first responders. And so, what I would suggest, a resource I would suggest, is Psychology Today, and guide that parishioner to Psychology Today, because um, as Mike said in the last webinar, the police can only do so much. The deacons can only do so much. I mean, we all have our physical challenges, we all have our mental challenges. So basically, depression is lack of um, lack of wanting to do things and lack of motivation to do things, like clean up. Like if you ask a person, can you clean up after help me clean up the sanctuary, they might not want to do it because they might have a lack of motivation to do it. So my suggestion, if you don't want to bluntly ask, unless they're publicly I am, and tell you guys what goes on, but you may start want to ask mom and dad whether they have seen signs of what looks like depression, and whether they have seen signs of lack of motivation, or you may just want to say, look, I'm here when you're ready to discuss it. Come find me, or I'll do it private, privately in your own home, or we can talk on the sidelines. Um, my most of parishioners have a good relationship with their priest and their deacons, so they will come out to a deacon or priest, but you may have to do a little bit of digging, and for some weird reason, you may just have to watch parishioners like a hawk to make sure they don't do anything to harm one another or to harm you guys. But basically, depression is lack of motivation to do things. Now, I will tell you, I am on um, depression medication. It has helped me tenfold, and my lack of motivation doesn't exist anymore. But I will tell you, I had struggles getting up out of bed every day and taking myself to the bus to go to church. And so many people did not know that I was hiding a big giant monster until I got diagnosed after coming out of rehab after my back surgery. I mean, I had my church support me when I had my back surgery. Also, they supported me so much that I felt that it was a duty to them, to human society, to have me be a functioning person in society, that I needed to figure my life out. So basically, what I'm telling you guys is to stand by those parishioners. Don't come out and bluntly ask unless you see some signs that you should bluntly ask, but just stand by them. Like, next slide. And anxiety. Anxiety is a fear of life, a fear of, let's just say, getting communion, for example, a fear of walking up to the rail of getting communion. I know there's social anxiety, which I don't have. I get scared of hospitals. I get scared. I'm not necessarily scared of church. I get scared of people. I don't do well when people come up to me and then invade my space. That's the only time I get scared of people. But as long as people, and again, you need, unless they're hurting themselves, you need just to stand by the parishioners, and even another parishioner could stand by another parishioner. Now, um, I've had the privilege of people saying to me, "I'll be your emergency contact," and this was in 2019. If you want to go to therapy, and if you want me to be your emergency contact. But my advice would, obviously, if they're tending to hurt you, others, on themselves. Obviously, as mandatory reporters, you have to tell. But I want you guys to potentially have team meetings with the family members and say, how could I support the family members? And the so somehow Mike disbanded decided so, but what I was saying is that you it takes a team effort to go support the family members, and um what will end up happening is the family members will say, no, my son or daughter doesn't have depression, or they've been moved. The family members will beat around the bush. No, my son or daughter doesn't have anxiety. They're just scared of life. And until you get truly diagnosed, you don't know how to deal with it. So, what I would say, and I've been told this by counselors, is go to Psychology Today, use Psychology Today um, as a resource, and just say, I'm here to witness what you're going through. If you need my help, let me help you. But anxiety is basically a fear of life. Depression is a fear of lack of motivation to do things, and anxiety is a fear of life. Social anxiety, which I don't have, is a fear of going out and being around people. Now,
When
woof,
can
go
I
ahead.
can I ask a clarifying
Yeah,
question real quick?
go.
Um, so you mentioned going to Psychology Today. That's a magazine. What do you mean by going to Psychology Today? Are you
That's it's actually good question. It's actually a website. It's not a magazine. They've made a website out of it. And what it will tell you is there will be counselors in all 50 states. Now, you will have to interview you will have to ask the professional to interview their own counselor, but basically, counselors are trained to deal with anxiety and depression. Some specialize in it, some specialize in it, others do not. But basically, if you go to Psychology Today and pull down all 50 states, um, you can read bios of counselors. Let's say in Arizona, you can read bios, let's say in Alabama, and it should say what they specialize in, whether they specialize in single commas or family marriages or disabilities, or I'm truly blessed that I have my own counselor that specializes, well, I shouldn't say she specializes in disabilities, but she has a family member with cerebral palsy. So she gets where I come from. She gets the aid situations. She gets me. So basically, what you're going to have to do for your parishioners is guide them to Psychology Today, and maybe join them if they're too scared to figure out to go see a counselor and then to go see a psychiatrist to get diagnosed. Maybe you sit via phone with them and have them dial the counselor, and maybe you make it a pastoral care project. But at the same time, psych counselors will lead you to psychiatrist, or psychiatrist will lead you to counselors. There's also a free there's also a free mental health support group nationwide, and it was founded here in Arizona. I'm actually a member of it. It's called Codependence Anonymous, and basically what Codependence Anonymous does is teaches you how to have happier, healthy, happier and healthier relationships with people, whether it's colleagues, whether it's friends, whether it's church members, whether it's whoever you're dealing with. And basically, people with depression, people with anxiety try to control the situation. Well, Codependence Anonymous teaches you how not to take over the situation, and I know that's really hard for priests not to do, and I know that's really hard for priests to guide people in the right direction. But at the same time, you guys need to ask for help from the psychiatry field and from the counseling field, because at the end of the day, how are we going to make our village happy? And when Mike, next slide. And when I got diagnosed with anxiety and depression, I was already in church. It just reared its ugly head because, um, and I had a deacon come into the recovery room, and it just reared its ugly head after five 5.5 hours of back surgery. All of a sudden, depression and anxiety reared its ugly head, and I didn't even know what was going on in my head. But apparently, this deacon said, "I have never seen you." And my church knows my baseline. They know when I'm not feeling well. They know my history. I've done enough pastoral care with St. Barnabas on the Desert. They know me sick and sin. They support the good, bad, and the ugly. And when this person came into recovery to see me for the 5 minutes, one of the first things she said is, "When I have never seen you so scared in your life, the little that I know you, and of course I know your baseline." So that really got me thinking. Now, granted, if you say to someone in the hospital, or if you, as pastoral care teams, mention that this person may be depressed, doctors will take that seriously. So, what I did, I squished it until I got out of um, rehab, but I wasn't in the best mood to be in rehab, and people saw a lot of tears. People saw a lot of tears, but I knew I had the safety net of church, and I knew if I came out to church, they would be proud of me for getting myself diagnosed. But what the straw was that broke the camel's back was my back surgery in 2024. I knew that something was wrong when I woke up after 5.5 hours, and I knew my head wasn't right. Now, I knew that hospitals give me anxiety, they always have, but I knew that it was on a deeper level, that I knew I had to look for help. And I wasn't relying necessarily on the church. The church is a great step. And with my PCP, I'm lucky enough to have access to 3 registered nurses. And if you have registered nurses in your congregation, even retired ones, they can guide you they can guide pastoral care teams to getting parishioners help. I mean, at the end of the day, it takes a village. And until these parishioners start looking under rocks, they won't know what hit them. And so they might feel these feelings and squish it. So what I landed up doing is telling a registered nurse friend of mine that I felt these feelings, and she said, "Call your PCP." Well, what ended up happening is my PCP said, "Well," I said on the phone, I said, give me a drug for depression. I feel like I have depression." And I always said, after my mom died, which was in 2010, "I think I'm depressed. I think I'm depressed. I think I'm depressed." And everyone said to me, "When you're anxious, you're anxious, you're anxious." They use it as a joke against me. Ha ha. Not very funny now, looking back on it. And so it's like you got to start digging on the rocks. And medical advocacy is one of those things that you got to stand there quietly and witness a parishioner's sob story. And with my particular PCP, I said, "Give me a drug for depression." They said, "Well, what type of drug do you want?" And I said, "I don't know. I just have the feelings of depression." And they said, "Well, we can't get," and now this was at the end of May, the beginning of June, "we can't get you in till July 23rd. And we can't see, we need to see you before we give you the medication." And I'm like, "Didn't you just hear me say I had the words, I feel depressed?" And so the medical advocacy, I know you guys can't do medical advocacy, but you can at least support the parishioner. You can at least stand by them, guide them to Psychology Today, guide them to not necessarily Google, but guide them to Psychology Today, and support them. Ask them when you meet with them in a pastoral care setting, have you taken the steps to go to Psychology Today and actually look for a counselor or a psychiatrist, or would you like a little bit more help? And you would be surprised how many people say yes, or how many people say I need a little bit more help, because getting diagnosed with anxiety and depression is the most scary thing. Now, I've told my church, and they know this, and they're trying to teach it to everyone else. They know this because of my anxiety medication, which is Zoloft. I can't take the wine at church. They know this, so they don't give it to me. And that that was the easiest. That was one of and I told one one deacon, and she happened to follow suit and then work with everyone behind the scenes. I know she did, to say this parishioner can't take the wine because she's on antidepressants, which I think churches need to know. They don't need to know their parishioners' medical history, but they do need to know whether they're on antidepressants, because mixing wine with antidepressants isn't a good thing. So the church has given me, how has the church helped me? The church has given me a lot of peace around me having anxiety and depression, because I know that God loves me no matter what shape I'm in. So we've got to start breaking the stigma, and we've got to start breaking the silence about anxiety and depression, and we've got to start supporting those who are suffering. Like, next slide. And so Google definitions. Google definitions, as I said, depression is lack of motivation, and possible causes are stressing at home, and stresses financially, stresses with their own disabilities. A lot of disabilities have come with bucket of anxiety and depression, at least mine did. And I Googled it. I Googled, does cerebral palsy come with anxiety and depression? And the answer is yes. And so what ends up happening is that you kind of have to look under every rock. And what anxiety is by Google is, it's a fear of wanting to do things. It's a fear of um, now there's medical PTSD, medical post traumatic stress syndrome, which is a fear of going into hospitals, which I and another thing I have to tell you guys is, they there is such a thing as a weighted toy. I'm looking, as I give this webinar, I'm looking at a weighted Elmo, which I found on Amazon. Yes, I said Elmo. And yes, I brought him to my knee surgery back in February, because he's weighted, and the weighted toys help with anxiety. And I don't know if you guys can get, I found Elmo off of Amazon. So if you type in weighted um, toys, weighted blankets, weighted something, and just guide the parishioner to Amazon and let them pick what they want. The weighted blankets are incredibly hot, though, but that's the only precursor to the weighted blankets, but I know weighted blankets work to calm people down. I know medication works, and just talking to people and ru- I hate to say rubbing people's backs, but just giving them, for me, giving me a sense of a strong hug. A strong hug works for cerebral palsy, and people notice that I am a hugger. I like receiving hugs, but as I said, we've got to start breaking the stigma, and anxiety and depression could affect could definitely affect one's self-esteem. I mean, it's a self-esteem issue. Do people like me? Am I received by my church family? And anxiety and depression, in my case, anxiety, eh, well, primarily anxiety and not depression. When I was undiagnosed, I had trouble sleeping, and that is one of the common signs there because my brain wouldn't shut down enough for me to get sleep. And that is a whole host of problems when I don't get enough sleep. So it's daily behavior, it's energy levels, it's um it's also self-esteem, and it's concentration, and that's what I wanted to bring up tonight is more about concentration than anything else. Getting people to concentrate on the Holy Gospel when they have undiagnosed anxiety or depression is an absolute show and a half, because until the brain gets the metabolism boost it needs from those anxiety medications, at least in my case, um, then I'm able to concentrate more on what is being preached. And I know we all want all parishioners to take something away from church. We don't care what it is. Maybe some of us do, but we at least want the parishioners to be happy at the end of the day. Mike, next slide. And Google definitions of anxiety. Um, I went over Google definitions of depression, Google definitions of anxiety, and this has happened to me. If a parishioner goes, man, I am breaking into a sweat, and we're in a AC, air conditioned um, hall, that may be a sign of anxiety, because breaking into a sweat is the person is anxious around people. And fast heart rate is another sign of anxiety. And then being tired is also, now being tired is a sign of depression and a sign of anxiety. So you may have to ask one of ask a psychiatrist or ask a, counselor what is the difference between being tired and being depressed and being tired, and being anxious and being tired, because until last night when I was putting this together, I didn't know that they were common. Being tired was a common symptom of the both. So you guys may have to dig a little deeper. And if you want, I will send you more information about that because um, I want to know myself why the two coincide of being tired. I guess holding anxiety and holding being depressed and lack of motivation makes you tired, and being fearful of every single little thing makes the body exhausted. Next slide, Mike, please. And so, pastoral care, pastoral care should remain private. But as I said, if you see a parishioner hurting themselves, wanting to hurt others, especially you guys have to let the cat out of the bag. But in the privacy, you can mention to them about psychology today, or have a family pastoral care session and tell the family, I'm here for your son, daughter, or yourself, and I just want to help. Here are some resources to help. I can need, I can sit on the phone with you guys as you call the counselor, or we can put a announcement in the bulletin saying we need help of a retired counselor or psychiatrist. But basically why we're here tonight is let's break the stigma. Let's not cause any more opioid addicted people, because the depressed will go after the opioids like there's no tomorrow. And I know from my own personal experience that doctors, normal PCPs, have a hard time diagnosing the opioids, but giving the opioids and diagnosing the final diagnosis, but they do have a hard time giving the opioids. And so, what we need to do as church members and as a human society is support those in need. Next, next slide.
I'm sorry, but I need to leave. I've got a cat who's bugging the heck out of me. So
That's okay, Robin.
this has been really good. So
Yeah.
thank you all. And
You're welcome.
I have a 6:15 I probably need to drop off on so I can get ready for 6:30. Is that still possible?
That's still possible. Robin, if you want to reach out to um, if you want to reach out to myself or Mike, primarily me, about how you can help with the Disabled Concerns Committee, great. If you have any questions, I'm happy to email you, and I'm happy to be a support to you, and I'm happy to give you more information on what we're doing.
Well, I think it's wonderful